Thanks everybody for joining me. My name is Evan Radisink. I'm the Executive Director of the Cloud Software Association. Thanks for joining us for another Masterclass. This time we've got Ashley Scorpio from Hawk Media. She's the Vice President there. She's going to take us through how she kind of scaled her program to a very impressive, like over 1,000 partners, representing over 30% of company revenue, which is really, really impressive. She's going to take us through some co-marketing strategies, kind of how to evaluate your process, and something that she calls the buddy system, which I'm super interested to hear about. I won't take up much of your time. I'm going to kind of hand it off to Ashley. She's got a presentation. Let's try to make it as interactive as possible. So as awkward as it is to jump on with a question, just get in there. We've got an hour together, and you've got an expert kind of willing to answer some questions. So I'm going to hand it off to you, Ashley.
Sounds good. Thank you, Evan. Yeah, like Evan mentioned, I'm the VP of Partnerships at Hawk Media, so I oversee our whole partner program as well as sit on the agency's executive team. So really plugged into the day-to-day of the business across the agency, not just in partnerships. And that, of course, is mostly because partnerships is now such a big part of our business. So I joined Hawk in January 2020 in the before times, and had a few months just in person on site before, we went fully remote and pivoted because of the pandemic and started working from home. And a lot of people have talked about how the pandemic has affected, say, the events industry, what have you, but not a lot of people have talked about how it's affected partnerships. And, I used to be the head of partnerships at W Promote as well, another digital agency. And, when I was in this same role at W Promote, I think I went to about 30 conferences in 12 months, not including local dinners, meetups, happy hours, coffees, lunches, etc. And so here at Hawk in this role, obviously that largely hasn't been possible due in part to the pandemic. So I think there was a lot of partnerships pivoting that occurred, and I'm happy to touch on that as well. But yeah, I mean, I managed to grow our contribution and our revenue as a channel 12% last year, year over year in the pandemic. And then it's gotten to the point where we generally hit on about 30% of all company revenue from our channel. Last month, it was actually closer to 50, which was pretty exciting. And then in turn, I have been scaling the team accordingly in order to support all of our partners, because like Evan mentioned, we actually have over 1,200 partners across 7 different categories. And we have a team now to support that. So previously it was myself and one other person. And now we have 7 people on the team with headcount for 9. So we're constantly growing as well, just in order to see how we can best support our partners. So that is very much a focus for us. I'm happy to start with sort of how I started to build the program at the agency, and then go from there into the types of partnerships, co-marketing, partner categories, positioning, the buddy system, quota, which we have as well, and then also how outreach and engagement has differed specifically in a pandemic. Before I proceed, can everyone still hear me? Because it seems like my video went out.
Yeah, we can hear you. Don't worry. Oh, you're back in. Yeah, don't worry about the video.
Some technical difficulties over here today, but hopefully at least the audio is coming through.
Yeah, I think Zoom has a personality today. That's okay.
It's spicy, as one of my accelerator groups say. Okay. Yes, very much so. Before we get into it, is there anything that I didn't mention that any of you would like me to get into or touch upon? I'm happy to add that to the agenda, if you will.
You can also drop it in the comments too, as you're kind of going through. If you guys get ideas, just drop in the comments. I'll jump in there too.
Perfect. Okay, so what I would say is if you're initially starting to set up your partner program, or if you're new at your company and you want to set up your partner program for success, or you're even just at the point of trying to reinvigorate the program, I think honestly, and this might seem counterintuitive, the first thing that you should do is actually turn your attention internally. So partnerships, you probably think third parties, external, but I honestly think the way to set up the program for success and to ensure that your organization can adequately support those partners is externally. So, internally with internal stakeholders supporting those partners externally. So at least from my perspective, beyond the partnerships team itself, and it might just be you, or if you have a whole team, you might also want to closely align yourselves in particular with the sales and marketing teams. And if you have it, let's say a client success team, and if you're on the agency side, perhaps your service team members. If you're not, if you're at a technology company, it might be your product team that might make the most sense instead of those service teams. So those would be probably some of the stakeholders you might want to think about. So first and foremost, you should probably sit down and think about who are my key internal stakeholders, who are my key internal champions that can help support these partners and partnerships adequately, and what can they bring to the table. So when I first joined Hawk, I actually made a point of doing a one-on-one meeting with every single salesperson, including the junior sellers, to understand more about them, what types of partners they're excited about, also what verticals and specialties that they focus on, and therefore then think about pairing them up. And this feeds into the buddy system, which partners would make the most sense for them. And then on the marketing team, inversely, I did the same thing. I did one-on-ones with everyone. And that was in addition to attending all of the team meetings for all of those teams. So for my first 6+ months, I went to every single sales meeting and every single marketing meeting. I basically embedded myself in those two teams, even though they're separate from the partnerships team, of course. And then in addition to that, on the agency side, I took the time to set up a monthly one-on-one with every single channel head, who obviously, when it comes to vetting and utilizing technology partners platforms, would be the key stakeholders to have buy-in to say, yes, let's try this technology on behalf of our clients, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think building up those relationships, setting up one-on-ones, taking the time to attend their meetings and understand what they care about, what their processes are, is then how you can figure out where do partnerships and where do partners plug into those existing processes, and maybe what's missing. What is the opportunity to create new processes internally around partners to support your partner program? So the next thing I think is kind of important to think about is the types of partnerships. So the types of partnerships typically might be referral partners, co-marketing partners, reseller partners, white label partners. So I would say those are some of the things that you should think about. Which of these types of partnerships make the most sense for your company and for your business model? Which ones do you perhaps already have in place? Which ones are feasible? Which ones maybe don't make sense at all that you're better to skip? So for example, at Hawk, we primarily have referral partnerships. We also have co-marketing partnerships, and we have several partners that approach us about reselling, but it's typically not something we do. It just doesn't make sense for our model. And then overwhelmingly, we've been approached by other agency partners for white label partnerships, which is historically not something we offered, but over time, based on partner requests, I managed to get that approved sort of on a case-by-case basis. So you even want to think about the types of partnerships that you're offering and the structure or what you're set up for and how that fits into the ecosystem. You know, are you best off with just, if you're a SaaS company, are you best off with just reseller partnerships, or might some of your partners not work that way? So you need to offer referral as well. So I think it also ties into having those internal conversations to see what's possible to execute on. And so, yeah, I would definitely think about the structure of the partnerships, what you can support reasonably well, and what you might want to, move into. And then what sort of ties into structure is also the partner categories. So what types of partners have you historically worked with, and what types of partners might you want to try? So for example, here at Hawk, historically, we primarily worked with technology partners, especially MarTech, AdTech, SaaS companies whose technology and offering we could leverage on behalf of our clients in the day-to-day digital marketing that we do for our clients. We, to a lesser degree, worked with some other agencies, but it was a pretty small category. And then in addition to those two categories of partners, overwhelmingly, we had a number of individual referral partners. But there was still plenty of room to grow across different types of individuals that might want to refer business to us. So we're at the point now where a referral partner could be an entrepreneur, a connector, a super connector. They could be retired, but a business person. They could be a marketing consultant. They could be a business management consultant. They could be a one woman or one man show who has their own consultancy, but outsources or wants to white label some of that work to an agency, to a larger agency like ours. So yeah, I think you should think about those partner categories and also sort of the subgroups within each category and how you continue to expand it and grow it. So those were historically the primary 3 categories that we had. And today we have over 7. So this is also where you sort of iterate and test and see what works. So we actually now work with, and you might not think this, government agencies. We have actually done outreach and built relationships within our networks to several foreign governments, and in particular their trade ministries, that usually work with different cohorts of companies that are looking to enter or grow and expand in the US market. And that's worked really well for us, where we have clients around the world, but overwhelmingly we're based here in the US. We have expertise in this local market and we're leaders in the space. So we've built amazing relationships with all these different governments in order to best service their cohorts of companies and those clients as they decide to work with us. And to that end, we put together special thought leadership programming and discounts for any of the businesses that they refer over to us. So that's been a very fruitful new partner category that we historically had never done. And we tried and it worked well. And then we continue to iterate on it and replicate it amongst all different governments. So that's just one example and one idea. Agencies. We previously, and it might be counterintuitive for an agency to partner so heavily with other agencies, because you might think, oh, that's the competition. Why would I partner with them? I challenge you to rethink that mindset, because I think partnerships first and foremost is collaborative rather than overtly competitive. And I think that oftentimes, we have a really large sales team. We have about 50 people on the sales team that are outbounding day to day. They might get a great prospect on the line, but then it turns out we don't offer a specific service, even though we're full service, or we're at bandwidth, or they want a different price point or what have you. Well, we'd be happy to still just refer that to another partner that can take care of that prospective client. Because at the end of the day, that's a better experience for that prospective client. And even if they're not going to work with us, we want them to have a great impression of who we are and what we do. And so we're very secure in our offering, and we're more than happy to refer business to other agencies. We typically don't white label in that sense. We don't ever usually have, and I don't think we ever have had another agency white label services on our behalf, because we very much want to have a one-to-one relationship with a client of ours. However, if we're unable to work with them for whatever reason, we're more than happy to refer them to another agency that can take great care of them and have a one-to-one relationship with them. And of course, inversely, and this is one of the number one things I think that's important to think about when you're thinking about your partner program, is ideally a successful partnership is a two-way street, right? So those other agency partners, they might only do one service. They might only do SEO, or they might only do paid media. And so they might have a client that needs XYZ that we offer. And so they refer them over for that specific thing while they continue to service that other piece of the account. And so again, you want this to be a great relationship for everyone involved. So it's really important not to step on anyone's toes, particularly not your partner. And so I think when you're working with an agency partner and they're referring someone to you, it's important to ask questions and also have that sort of upfront contract that they let them know, like, we are working with this client for XYZ. We want them to engage with you on X only. And then you make that abundantly clear when you pass that off to your sales team, your client success team, your account management team, and so on and so forth. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to have inadvertently sort of gone around that partner, because then it's not going to be a good situation for anyone involved, and you're probably not going to get any business from them in the future. So you should also always have that long-term thinking and vision in mind, and be a team player with your partners. So that's the way I sort of view that with, let's say, agency partners. And then, as I mentioned, we have a number of other partner categories. So another one that's been huge for us that I think a lot of technology companies should probably think about expanding into more is we work with sort of startup and venture partners. And again, the category actually has many different subcategories to it. So there's traditional venture funds in there, there's private equity funds, there's accelerators, incubators, pre-accelerators, venture studios, angel investors. And so again, we have to think about what unique offering could we offer these types of partners that is more interesting and engaging for them, because the incentives need to be aligned. So if we have referral partners that are primarily motivated by commission, these venture partners and these, even the government partners probably aren't. They might not be in a position to take a commission, and it might be considered a conflict of interest or unethical. So instead we turn around and say, hey, we typically offer this percentage of a commission. We're more than happy to offer it to your portfolio companies as a discount instead. And that makes more sense for them. They want excellent white glove support of their portfolio companies that they send our way. And of course, they would love for them to have a discount as well. And then again, this is the types of partners that often thought leadership matters the most. So we offer bespoke thought leadership for any of these partners. If they want us to put together a closed session for their founders, CEOs, CMOs only, we'll provide the expert, we'll provide the content and the programming, and we'll just try and help them move towards their business and marketing goals, whether it's with us or not, and we can support. And similarly, we also often do office hours with these types of partners. In the before times, we might have done this in person, especially if it was an accelerator. We might have just gone to the accelerator for the day or a few hours on an afternoon once a week. And then, of course, nowadays it's virtual over Zoom. And of course, we could even then capture a bigger cohort of their audience that way, because it's easier for people to drop in. So again, think about your partner categories, think about the types of partners you have historically worked with, and then think about what else might work, and think outside the box, right? I mean, who would have thought that a digital marketing agency in the US would work with all these foreign government agencies? But we do, and it works really well. And we appreciate our partnership with them. So yeah, that was kind of the point about partner categories. Before I get into positioning and collateral, did anyone have any questions or comments on any of that? Awesome. Okay, so next, I think what's extremely important is you think about the positioning of your company, right? Whether you're at a SaaS company or you're an agency, how you tell your story and the value proposition that you have when you go out to partners, especially new potential partners that you don't have an existing relationship with, is extremely important. So in addition, as you expand your partnership team, you want to make sure there's some consistency in that positioning. I like authenticity. So unlike the sales team, I don't really insist on us having a script, but I think that it's important to have some uniformity of sort of the highlights or key points that you would expect, let's say, a partner manager to hit on in a partner discovery meeting with a prospective new partner. And of course, training is a really big piece of this too. So if you have someone new who's new to your company, who's new to your partner team, you also want to make sure that they have an adequate amount of training and ramp up time to handle any sort of questions to get a partnership off on the right foot. How we do that at Hawk is in the first several weeks, and it can continue into several months, but it's less of all of their time at that point and more a percentage. We actually have new partner managers shadow calls of myself, of other partner managers on the team, in order to, again, understand and also learn, because everyone has their own style, how they position Hawk Media, how they talk about our partner program, what the value proposition is for our partner program, and how it differs for each of our different key partner categories. And then similarly, this is where process comes into play. And this is obviously a key part of the discussion today. Is it's not enough to, have some partners know who they are. You should have an idea or a set cadence of how you engage with them. Do you have a weekly call? Do you have a biweekly call? Do you have a monthly call? Do you have a quarterly call? Do you have partner tiers? How have you organized those different partners beyond the partner type or the partner category? Do they have a set point of contact on your team? If you're a one woman or one man show, is it just you? And if so, what can you reasonably do with the amount of partners you have and the limited time that you have, right? Is there any sort of automation? Do you have any sort of follow-up or engagement sequences set? Do you have a partner newsletter? What cadence does the partner newsletter go out? Do you have different versions of your partner newsletter based on your different partner types? Does that make sense? Are there different key updates that you'd like to give to each different type of group, right? So I also think it's important to think about, as you scale your team and have dedicated resources, to thinking about assigning them out accordingly. So we've done that largely by geography ad hoc. So we have an East Coast partner manager, a Midwest partner manager, a West Coast partner manager, and then we specifically have a partner marketing manager that focuses on all of the co-marketing in conjunction with our marketing teams that support those initiatives. So any given month, we do between 20 and 30 co-marketing initiatives with our partners each month. And so obviously that in and of itself, at least at the volume we're doing, that is a dedicated role, because previously, when it was still being scaled up, we would have each partner manager focus on co-marketing campaigns with their specific cohort of partners that they own the relationships with, and then internally get that support in addition with my support. And now we're at the point where we have a dedicated role to oversee all of partner co-marketing on our team, in addition to the 2 marketing teams that support our co-marketing efforts. So yeah, I think all this feeds into the positioning of the company. And then of course, with positioning comes collateral. What collateral do you have for your partners when you want to go and follow up with them after your initial partner discovery call and onboarding? Do you have a capabilities deck? Do you have a one sheet? Do you have a Loom video? Do you have a PRM that has a resource center in it? So you just need to think about what collateral you have and how, again, you can best position that, and how you can take a prospective new partner into your onboarding process and engage them and then become an active partner with them. So I think that's extremely important. And then similarly, you should think about what offers or resources you have for partners. I think first and foremost, the way I view partnerships is, how can I add value to the partner, right? And I think what comes next naturally follows, it hopefully evolving into that beautiful two-way street. But the way I start a partnership off is, how can I help you? Who do you want to talk to at our agency? What colleagues do you want to connect with as a next step? And that's also extremely important as part of your process, is even when you're getting off that initial discovery call, if you've at least hit on some key points to determine that, yes, it is a fit, let's move forward, you have clear next steps. I'm going to do X, Y, Z on my end. I'll keep an eye out for that piece of collateral on your end, and so on and so forth. So whatever you've agreed upon with that new partner, you have to then follow through and execute on those next steps. And then that sort of feeds into, we're constantly thinking about and iterating how we can support our partners, what we can offer them, what opportunity we can put in front of them. And so we come up with offers for our partners. So we have a monthly newsletter that goes out to our entire list. We have a monthly partner newsletter that goes out to our partner list. We do follow backlinks from our blog to our partners. We offer guest posts that we can publish and host for them on our site. We can, of course, do white papers, webinars, ebooks, any sort of that co-marketing that might be of interest to them. And then in addition to that, we offer referral commission. Like I said, some partners are more interested in referral commission. Some partners are more interested in leads back. This is honestly a question you should probably ask your partner on your first discovery call with them. Like, hey, what is most valuable to you in a partnership? Or what does success look like in a partnership for you? What are you hoping to get out of this relationship, right? And then, based on their response, what you should primarily be optimizing and gearing towards them or creating for them. So offers that are specific or bespoke to partners, I think, extremely important. And then let's talk a little bit about co-selling, cross-selling, and referrals. And so that's another big part of partnerships, of course, right? Ideally, a great successful partnership helps you grow and evolve your business alongside your partner's business. So hopefully it's holistic and you're each getting bigger, better, and more awesome together. Hopefully that is how your partnership is going. So first and foremost, you might want to think about cross-selling, co-selling, and referrals. So if you have a referral-based partnership, perhaps your technology partner, or you are the technology partner and you offer a rev share model to your agency partner, perhaps the agency offers a commission back to you as well. So it's kind of quid pro quo. And typically you understand from each other, and this is how you get a process in place. What is the ICP of your partner? What ideal types of clients or customers are they looking to connect with? Can they give you any qualifying questions that you can put in front of your sales team? Do they want to come in for a lunch and learn to train your sales, your client success, your service team members on what a good prospective client for that partner looks like? If so, you should create that opportunity for them to at least come in internally, present, and then getting that collateral from them. So on our end, we actually have a shared Google Drive internally with our entire agency, and every key partner has their own folder, and we keep all the collateral that that partner has given us in that folder, and the entire company has access to this shared drive. And then some partners have also supplied additional pieces of collateral. They might say, this is the minimum spend or minimum revenue that we need to see before it makes sense for us to talk to someone, or this is the budget they need to have to license our software and be a long-term customer, or these are the things to listen for on a call to know that they're qualified for our technology. So if you are the technology partner, you might want to think about creating these types of assets and sharing them with your partners proactively, or asking them if there's an opportunity to get these types of materials and collateral in front of the broader team members so they can think further about you. So yeah, that's at least something we do on our end that works really well. And similarly, when I'm talking about process and points of contacts, you might have a different point of contact for referrals than you do for, say, partner co-marketing or general partnership things. So especially as your team grows. So you should always make that abundantly clear to your partner where or who you actually want them to introduce, let's say, a referral to. It might be you, it might be your own email address, it might be partners at your company name, it might be introductions at your company name. A lot of SaaS companies I've noticed have a referral form, and Shopify does this, many other technology partners do this, where the other partner is supposed to fill out sort of a lead submission form. That, to be honest, often creates an additional barrier to entry. Salespeople have their eye on the prize. It's this other step to do that actually might deter them from referring to you rather than them just writing an email and shooting that off to you. There are ways around that if that's what you need internally. On our end, in some instances, our sales team will make the introduction, and our partner team will then go in and record or register the lead for our technology partner in order to ensure they have everything that they need from us and that they're happy. But just something to think about. What is your process for receiving referrals? What type of information do you need from your partner? Who on your end do you then assign referrals to that come from partners? And I highly recommend that you at least have a slightly different process internally on how leads referred from partners are handled versus an outbound or an inbound. So at least here at Hawk Media, our warm introductions that we receive from our partners have a higher AOV, have a higher close rate, and typically have a shorter sales cycle. So those are very typically more qualified, more interested leads than we might get from outbounding or even someone who inbounds to us. And therefore, we handle them a little differently. For example, on our end, instead of them going to a junior seller and being qualified and then the lead being scored and then being passed up the chain to, let's say, a more senior business development executive or growth manager, our leads from our partners go directly to our most senior business development executives to ensure that they get the best possible experience off the bat. And because we basically feel like our partner and in turn our partner team has done that extra step that perhaps the business development associate might typically do. And so we can cut that step out internally and cut to the chase for that prospective client. So that's at least how we handle things on our end when it comes to referrals from partners. Any questions about referrals, processes internally, sales team, before we get into the buddy system and quota? I see something in the chat. Let's see. Aha. Awesome. Thanks, Sunir. Which kinds of partnerships are higher priority for us? So our our channel at Hawk, the partnerships channel, is definitely a revenue generating channel. So I would say any partnership that will generate revenue and referrals, not just co-marketing, is higher priority for us. And that could be any type of partner, really, across those different categories that I mentioned. It could be a technology partner, it could be a venture partner, it could be a individual referral partner. It really varies across the board. So I don't think it matters so much what type of partner or category of partner it is. I think it matters to us more what they're willing to engage with us on. We like more dynamic partners. Someone who's not saying, oh, well, we only do co-marketing or we don't do co-marketing. We'd rather have a partner that's sort of dynamic and flexible like we are, that says, hey, this is what we have on offer for you. We've been really thoughtful to come up with things that we think might be interesting for you and to position you in front of our client base and our audience. And let us know if there's anything else that you want to do that you don't see here. We're flexible. We want to try it and see what sticks. So I honestly think that it's just good to have a very open mind as a partner. However, as a marketing agency, I would say that technology partners are extremely important to us. They definitely form part of the backbone of our business, right? And I would say in certain instances, certain types of technology partners, it's a non-starter not to have those relationships, right? If you are a leader in the space, or you are striving to be a leader in the space with your technology or your platform, it should get to a point where if an agency doesn't have a great relationship with you and access to alphas and betas or additional customer support, that agency might lose business to another agency that does, right? And so that's kind of like, I would say, the gold standard as a technology partner that you should strive for from the agency perspective, is that you've created a tool, a platform, a plugin that becomes so indispensable to that type of client that the agency is banging down your door to build that relationship, to ensure that they're providing the best possible caliber quality of work for their clients. So obviously that's something to strive towards. Let's see. Yes, I agree. Programmization is the key, as is processes. So when I started at Hawk, I actually only had one direct report who was an East Coast partner manager, and I was on the West Coast. So at least priority for me was getting someone else on the West Coast, in particular, as I started to do more of the high level strategy and focusing more of my time as some of those platform partners that don't necessarily yield revenue, but that are key to the caliber of work that we can provide, like relationships with Shopify, Google, Facebook, and so on and so forth. So yeah, for me, the priority was getting someone else, basically, yes, in the geo I was in, but in order to take that geo over from me. And then the next order of priority was to get someone else on the East Coast, because you should look at, where are your partners? Where are your most active partners? Where do you have critical mass? So the overwhelming majority of our partners are actually based on the East Coast. Even though we are fully remote today, especially due to the pandemic, however, we're going to be remote forever. We are spread across 28 states now, but in the before times, we were headquartered in LA. So it's actually kind of counterintuitive that so many of our partners are actually on the East Coast, but they are. So you should look at that critical mass and see internally what bandwidth or lack thereof that your teammates have, and see where you can support them more. So yeah, first order of priority was to get someone into the geo I was in where I could use some support. Next order of priority was to get someone else in the other geo where we had the most number of partners. And then thirdly, we decided to try a new geo. So we actually decided to start to build out Midwest partners and also segment some of our partners off from the other two managers into that geo if they were actually on a more compatible time zone. Again, we're trying to be as partner forward and friendly as we can. And even just being accessible in their local time zone, even if we're remote and we can't meet up in person, is probably more convenient. So we then thought about expanding into that new geo. And then finally, we got to the point of critical mass with co-marketing internally that we decided to create that position. Historically, the co-marketing had been handled by the two marketing teams we have internally. And now it's at the point where we actually have a partner marketing manager on the partnerships team to focus solely on that, but still have resources and support from our other two marketing teams internally. So I think basically order of priority when it comes to scaling and building your program is looking at where you are today and where you need extra support, where you want to go next. And then based on those resources or offers you have for your partners, so in our case, a lot of it was co-marketing, how can we better staff or resource that internally? And then of course, you can also think about where do you want to go next, whether it's a new geo or whether it's a new sort of resource or what have you. For example, currently, like I mentioned, we send all of our leads and opportunities from the partnerships team directly to the sales team. Although, like I mentioned, they are handled differently. You might be in a position eventually where perhaps you have a business development or sales oriented person who is on your partnerships team proper that only handles partner deals. That might be a structure that makes sense for you. So you also might want to think about that kind of structure beyond what you already have in place and what you have internally, but how can you best, again, how can you best service your partners and their customer bases? Awesome. That brings me to the buddy system. So the buddy system at Hawk, like I mentioned, we have a very large cohort of partners, of course. And, to Sanir's question, what types of partners do we value the most or spend the most time on? I would say we spend a lot of time on our technology partners. And another way that we felt we could support them better, in addition to their points of contacts on our partnerships team, is we actually decided to pair off our top technology partners with a business development executive on their side, with a business development executive on our side. And typically it would also be either verticalized or by geo. So it would be, hey, this is someone they have in Boston, this is someone we have in Boston, or this person focuses on SMBs and our person focuses on SMBs or startups and so on and so forth. And basically this lets them do on a one-to-one basis what we sort of do partner team to partner team when it comes to referrals, co-selling, and so on and so forth. You can pair up these two people so they can build a relationship one-to-one. They can compare pipelines, they can share notes, and they can make introductions directly for each other. So it's nearly sort of a dedicated referral partner within each organization for each other. So that's worked really well for us. And of course, as you're still building out your partner program and maybe you don't have as many or any dedicated partner managers, this again is a great way to supplement and ensure those relationships are still invigorated and active by leveraging the internal resources that you already have, even though it's from another team. So that's something that we tried that works really well. And then in addition to that, we also have a quota. So we actually, like I mentioned earlier, we collected all this information from our partners. What's your ICP? What types of clients or customers do you want to speak to? How to best approach them? What should we be listening for? What do we have to do when we want to make an introduction to you? So once we got all of that in place, the next thing we did was roll out a quota, first to our sales team, then our client success team, and next it'll be to our service teams. But it's basically the number of qualified introductions each rep on our side needs to make per month to partners. And again, it is qualified. If there's ever an issue with quality, it's a conversation internally. And then basically we're at the point where we make between 150 and 200 plus introductions to our partners per month that are qualified based on the criteria that we have, that of course are spread across our broader partner ecosystem. And then in order to ensure more equity amongst our partners, we also want to make sure if a partner is featuring us in a co-marketing campaign that month, either we're doing the same or they're our featured partner for that month internally or for that week, specifically for those warm introductions. We always want to make sure that there's some equity going back and forth. So we build it into the processes that we follow internally and externally. If we specifically notice that a partner made more introductions to us recently, we purposely we track everything. We see how many introductions that partner has made that month, how many we've made to them, any feedback they've given us on quality or time, or if they needed a nudge. And then again, we always want to make sure things are fair and balanced. So if we notice there's any lopsidedness, especially if it's from our end, we will then try to supplement that. And we also have internal spiffs that the partnerships team runs for the sales team. And we'll tell them, hey, this is the featured partner this week. And they're very competitive. They're salespeople. You need to think about what motivates every different type of person in your organization. in order to get them engaged and helping support these partnerships. So yeah, I mean, the quotas worked really well for us. The one thing is you should ensure that the quota is low enough, because you don't want it to be quantity over quality. You want your partners to be happy with the quality of the leads and warm introductions they're receiving from you. And in addition to that, you also, again, don't want to step on any toes internally either. And so salespeople obviously have this other job that's their primary function, is to develop leads, opportunities, and relationships for Hawk Media. Meanwhile, we're asking them, hey, also think about our partners, keep them top of mind, introduce them where appropriate. So we don't want to split their focus too much. So you have to make sure any quota that you roll out is small enough that partners aren't being spammed with too many introductions that maybe are quantity over quality, which is not what you want. And also you want to make sure they are doing their primary job and meeting their sales quota of their primary function, whilst also keeping partners top of mind and bringing them into the conversation. So we've also worked with our sales team beyond having partners come in typically each week for a lunch and learn to educate them and ensure they're positioning them appropriately. We also answer all of their questions regularly, the partnerships team internally. We also have Slack channels with all of our top, in particular, technology partners that anyone can ask questions to see, you know, what questions might they need. If our partners do this for us and we do this to them, we sometimes Slack them and say, hey, just spoke to so-and-so, are you interested in connecting with them? This is what they're looking for, and some details. And then the partner can say, yes, please introduce me, or no, for whatever reason. That's also great to check in if you're ever unsure. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just bringing process to every sort of partner related activity you're doing internally and externally.
Actually, what are you using to, you say you were tracking everything. What are you using to track all this?
Brings me to a good point. I was actually going to touch on tech stack. So we use many different tools. We are currently in the process from our CRM of shifting from HubSpot to Salesforce. So that's the CRM that we use. Historically, we have used PartnerStack as our PRM, which is what we currently use as well. We're also currently onboarding into Partner Hub for the internal Kanban partnerships team relationship sort of management for all of our partners, especially because we have so many. We also have our shared Google Drive internally with all those resources that I mentioned. We also have Google Sheets that sort of track all the different introductions and activities back and forth internally and externally, because that's also what we report on internally, is how many warm introductions we receive from each partner per month, per quarter, per year, etc. How many of those resulted in new opportunities, how many resulted in business closed won, and so on and so forth. How many upsells or existing business resulted from initial partner introductions and what have you. And then of course, all of the different co-marketing initiatives we do with partners each month. And of course, when it comes to that, we also include any data we have, click-throughs, clicks, conversions, form fill captures, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, I think tech stack is another really big part of your partner, running your partner program successfully, is basically thinking about how you're tracking everything, how you're reporting on it internally, and sort of what will be the best possible tool for your team to stay organized. So in short, we currently use Salesforce, PartnerStack, HubSpot we're still using for email automation, Partner Hub, and when it comes to cross-selling and co-selling, we also use Crossbeam. So definitely something to think about is you might have a completely different tech stack for your partner team or your partner program from the rest of your organization. And yeah, that's definitely something you should evaluate. Do we need a solution for this? What kind of solution do we need? What's our budget for the solution? What meets our price point? You know, it varies widely, including what are the different capabilities. PRMs vary vastly. Some PRMs are internal only, some are external only, some charge you on a monthly basis, some charge you per transaction for payouts if you're doing payouts, some charge you per seat, per login, per partner. So the capabilities of a PRM varies extremely, and also the price point. So I would also just be sensitive to that, especially if you're at a startup or a smaller company, or your partner program isn't yet profitable or to the point where you can make such an investment in technology. But there are, of course, other great options that are also have, let's say, a freemium model that is usually more than sufficient, like Crossbeam, which is great for comparing overlaps of populations for co-marketing and co-selling, and cuts out a lot of manual labor.
Gotcha. That's great. I'm assuming you didn't start with all those things. I mean, you kind of build it out from probably like Google Sheets into PRM and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Definitely. I would say it also evolves over time. And you also think about at what point you have that critical mass to maybe graduate into a platform or step up from that platform into another one. And sort of, you'll start to notice what functionalities or pain points your partners are having. Like, hey, I can't see this, or it's too hard to use the resource center, or where do I register the lead, or what have you. And so I also think the number one thing you should look at, and I'm sure you're all very familiar on the technology side, are integrations. So if you're getting a PRM and you're going to be paying and licensing a PRM, does this PRM have a native integration with our CRM? Because again, you also want the rest of your organization to be on the same page, not just your partners and partnerships team. You might want your sales, marketing, CS, service team colleagues all on the same page too. So always look at what integrations are offered when you're evaluating a technology solution.
Awesome. And I know there's a question that comes up quite often on the agency side, as far as working with tech partners. What does, and this is kind of a great insight into kind of what agencies look for when partnering, kind of on a broader scale, not just technology partnerships. But when you do approach those technology partnerships, what do you generally look for? Like, is it a referral, number one? Is it a commission structure? Is it a revenue stream for you guys? Is it mostly focused around warm introductions to clients that usually lead to much better paid work? Like, can you kind of give us some insight into how agencies are approaching those technology partnerships?
Yeah, I think it would vary agency to agency, but at least at the two agencies I've been at, the interest is usually more often on reciprocation. So if we're primarily going to be referring business to you, we probably also want business to be referred back to us. I think a rev share or commission is a nice to have on the agency side, but it's definitely not a must have. I think most agencies are more interested in warm introductions and new business and referrals than a commission. I think that, on our end, we're looking to build lasting relationships with our clients that might far outweigh any commission over time, in particular, because most technology partners have a cap on their commission. It might be 6 months, it might be 12 months, what have you. For us, the commission we offer inversely is actually in perpetuity, for example.
Gotcha. So like if a technology partner didn't have a referral, if that's just not something they do, they don't refer leads to their partners, but it's purely a commission kind of structure, those wouldn't be something that you guys would be interested in, for example.
We would still, we're very open and flexible. We would probably still pursue the relationship and also see maybe what other types of co-marketing we can do together to go to market together in that way. But for us, at least, that's not as interesting as building out a more holistic relationship, especially because, like I mentioned, we have such a heavy focus on sending warm introductions, referrals, leads, and opportunities to our partners. So it's definitely something we're ideally looking for in return.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I mean, you guys have quite a broad partnership program, right? Like, it's for an agency, for a digital agency, especially kind of looking at it from a technology vendor point of view. It's not just, your MarTech, stack. It's a lot more than that. So what would you say about like the technology partnership? What percentage of partners does that represent for you guys? Like 30%, 20%?
I'd say it's about half. We have about 100 partners. We have over 600 technology partners.
Wow. And out of those, like, how many would you say are like very active, engaged, and you do consistent work with them? Because that's a lot of partners. I can't imagine you have a touch point with every single one equally, right?
Definitely not. So we actually have partner tiers in our program, which is definitely something I recommend to everyone when you get to a certain level of volume or threshold. So we actually have the typical gold medal, metal tiers. We have platinum, gold, silver, bronze. And we actually have specific thresholds for each, and what makes a platinum platform partner, what makes a bronze partner, and what have you, and then what each then sort of is entitled to in that sense. So, if you're a certain metal tier, you might not qualify to be our only featured spotlighted partner in our general newsletter. if you are a certain level, we might feature you to ensure you get more leads and opportunities and get to come in for a lunch and learn and get in front of our team. I think this helps you prioritize your team's time, bandwidth, and resources internally, especially when you have a larger group of partners. I also think it's important because if you're upfront with the partner about what these different tiers are and what each affords you, it's something for them to strive towards if that's something they're interested in pursuing with you. So yeah, I would say we prioritize accordingly, and that goes for calls as well. So like I mentioned, you might do a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, or quarterly call. So you're obviously not going to be having a weekly call with a partner that you haven't done much other activities with, right? It's more useful if you're really actively engaged. And some of our top partners, like I mentioned, they have a dedicated Slack channel with us internally. I'd say we probably have about 45 Slack channels with some of our top technology partners that we're basically talking to on a daily basis.
Wow. That's way more than I think your average agency. I would suspect. I don't think that's a norm with it is. How many like offices? You guys like? Can you guys give us a snapshot of kind of the inner workings of Hawk and how big you guys are, just so they can scale on like, okay, well, if you're talking to an agency of this size, you need to be aware that this is how many partners they're likely working with. Or if you're say an agency of 20, you probably are only working with 5 agency partners. So just give us kind of a scale of where you guys sit within that.
Yeah, so we are a company of about 200 people. We have about 30 open roles right now. We have been hailed as one of the fastest growing marketing consultancies in the country. So it's definitely sort of really upward growth. And as we continue to scale as a business, our partnership program continues to scale too. Like I mentioned, when I joined January last year, it was myself and 1 direct report. We now have 7 full-time members on the team with headcount for 9. So that's again because we are resourcing appropriately to support all of those partners that we have. We don't want to leave anybody behind, so we want to make sure we are open and available and able to reciprocate. And then I would say that is, to your point, highly unusual. I have been the head of partnerships at another digital marketing agency, and it was just me for a long time. And so in that role, I was the sole person. I managed to scale the program from scratch to 400 partners in 18 months before I went back to the startup world, which is kind of, my other love outside of agency life. So I have heard feedback from, our other agency partners that we work with, from our technology partners, that it's possible, especially for an agency our size, that we have probably one of the largest, most robust partner programs in our industry. I would say that the average agency probably has maybe like 10 top technology partners that they work with. Maybe they have a total of 30, and maybe they have 200 partners total. Again, this depends on the agency size. If it's a smaller boutique agency, it's going to be even smaller than that. But yeah, I mean, you also have to think, when I joined Hawk, we had about 600 partners, and we've doubled that in my time here to date.
Right. No, this is super good insight. We might actually have to do another session on just focusing on kind of the inner workings of an agency versus technology partner, because I think there's obviously a lot of technology partners here, but there's so many questions coming up on that piece of it, is like how to work with agency, what motivates them, how to like really work with them, like specific strategies on like, hey, you should launch this is how you're going to structure it, this is so we'll look into doing that. But we've got another minute or so left. I don't know if anybody has any other questions, or Ashley, if you want to add anything else.
The final thought that I had is, how have partnerships shifted during the pandemic? And obviously things have started to open up this summer, but now we've seen this resurgence. And so things have started to shut down again. And so, like I mentioned before, partnerships was largely very much in person and relationship based. You might take your partner to lunch or coffee, or host a happy hour, get your partners together. And so all of that has been extremely limited during the pandemic. So I think there are many other ways to supplement that in lieu of conferences, shows, and in-person rapport building. I think You could do a virtual happy hour with your partners. Something else we've seen a lot is gifting. You know, you might want to send you can't take them for lunch, let's say, but you might want to send them a little something over the holidays, or just because, even if it's just, swag from your company. I think that's really cool too. I love repping our partners. I wear partner t-shirts most days. So yeah, the more the merrier. I'll put them in my rotation and get them in front of whoever I'm speaking to. So I think that there's, some of our partners would also host a weekly happy hour with other partners. We've hosted virtually. We've done that similarly, doing little icebreakers or Zoom meetups work really well. I think other types of networking are more important than ever because the opportunities are limited. And I also think that because of the pandemic, previously you might have to reach out to or meet in person or try and meet up at a show or around a conference or something. And nowadays, because of this situation, partners are more open to cold outreach on LinkedIn or email. And so obviously it's made many things more difficult, but in some ways that has become easier because the options are limited. So it's easier to start the relationship there. Something else I've seen for technology partners that are really interested in specifically giving you a demo or getting you to license their software, what works really well and what I've seen some of them do is, at least for the service team colleagues, is offer, hey, I'd love to demo the product for you. I'm happy to send you like Starbucks gift card or something, get a coffee on us and come and sit through our demo. I usually send those over to our service team colleagues who would be the actual experts leveraging the technology so they can vet it. But yeah, I mean, historically, someone might have taken you out for a cup of coffee. There's still ways to sort of quasi replicate that virtually.
Awesome. All right, we're at time here, folks. So if there are any questions, please post them in the Slack community. We'll kind of get those answered. But Ashley, thanks so much for doing this. I think there's a lot of insight there. We'll have the recording for those who missed it to kind of tune in. But yeah, thanks very much for doing it, and thanks everybody for joining.
No worries. Sorry for the technical difficulty.
It's all good. It's all good. It happens. It's just normal now.
100%, unfortunately.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.